All right. Hello, Mark. We are joined by one half of the team of Marks. If you're from Jersey, you've seen this magazine somewhere along a store or when you're online somewhere, or you have seen Weird New Jersey somewhere along your travels. Mark, first off, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time, man.
Hey guys, thanks for inviting me on. It's a real pleasure to be here. And hopefully, my partner Mark Sceurman will join us via transmission. We'll all be hanging by our thumbs to see.
Well, since we only have half, are you more the weird part or the New Jersey part? So this interview can go in either direction.
Mhm.
Well, the magazine was really at the very impetus of it was Mark's idea. Of course, this was just over 30 years ago at this point.
Mm.
Um, but I jumped on very early on when I first heard about it. I heard Mark doing a radio interview on WFMU, and it was just right up my alley. It just the whole concept of what it was, and of course at that point, it was no more than a Xeroxed newsletter that was stapled together and basically handed around to friends. So I mean, it was still in its infancy when I contacted Mark and got on board and tried to offer not only stories but I was I was a graphic artist by trade, so I did a lot of started doing artwork and also the lion's share of the photography for the magazine at the time.
Well, let's jump into that time period. I mean, it says 1989 was the first newsletter.
Yeah, the first issues really came out. What Mark was doing, it was in an age of what was known as fanzines were very popular, and these were just
Mm,
publications that never were available commercially necessarily. They were just passed around to friends, and then, but mostly they were for fans of certain bands. Like if you
right.
were into, some
Gotcha.
obscure band like Big Star before they became, their resurgence happened. You would get onto the list, the mailing list, and all of this stuff went through the mail. You have to remember this was before the internet existed, so
Yeah.
communication between strangers was extremely limited, and that's these fanzines sort of put people in touch with each other, and that's exactly what Weird New Jersey started as. But it wasn't about a band. It was about these strange stories, legends,
Yeah.
happenings, history that took place in New Jersey. So it was unique in that sense.
So that's what I wanted to say. So we're in 1990, whatever, 1989, whatever you want to call it. We have no internet to go research these stories. We have no message boards to go collect data. Where are you guys first initially like, okay, getting some of these stories? Just is it just talking to people or stuff you heard of growing up? Where are the first initial stories coming from?
Yeah, that's it was a different age. People now, younger people, they wouldn't even they couldn't even fathom how isolated people were. There was no way to connect with people at all, really. Of course, that's why people used to go out
No.
Oh
and
yeah, I remember that. Hmm.
other human beings. So imagine a world where you have not only no social media, you don't even have any websites yet. It is it's like a prehistoric civilization, and there was no way to research stories that way or for people to get the stories. But what happened is when we started passing around the magazine, every since it was already just photocopied, everybody would photocopy their own version of it and pass it on to somebody else. So it was getting passed around. If you wanted to get one through the mail, we would charge you $5, which covered the printing of the thing and the shipping cost. So anybody could do that. Once they started to get around to people, then people would write us stories. It's the same way I got involved by writing to Mark and telling him I had this story and I wanted to share it. And then what happened was the thing kind of just became like a community bulletin board that wasn't instantly accessible. You would have to wait every 6 months to see what the new stories were. And
Mm.
then when people read the news stories, they would say, "Oh, I remember that thing. I remember that castle out in the woods up on the mountain. And I have a story. I went there with my friends, back in, 1986, and we had this incredible time." So the every story was perpetual. It kept getting, the stories kept building over time as more and more issues came out. And in addition to that, we would have news stories from, because as the magazine started to get passed around, it started very locally. It was very Bloomfield, Essex County, Clifton area, was basically the predominant story base. But as it started getting passed around, we started to get these stories from elsewhere, as far away as West Milford, which seemed like
Whoa.
Yeah.
it seemed like a world away. It realistically, it's 25 minutes away from
Yeah.
where we are.
A far
Uh,
land, West
but when
Milford.
people
Yep.
started telling us all these stories, we ended up, we ended up taking 1 day a week. We would take off from our day jobs on Wednesday, and as we said, there's no way to research these stories, on the internet, and it's not the kind of story that ever gets published in a newspaper. So generally, so even like going to a local library. You would have very limited access to information. So you have to go there. So you hear this story about this abandoned village in the woods of West Milford, where all of the residents, a cult leader moved into the small community and like killed everybody in the middle of the night. So all the houses are left with all this plates of food left on the kitchen table and all of the
Huh.
people's belongings still in these houses. So you got to go out and research that, and you go up there and you're like, holy crap, this is this is amazing, and you find it and you say, it doesn't matter if the story's true. It's such a great story and it's such a great legend that you print it, and then more facts come in as time rolls on. But for that minute, man, that is like the weirdest thing in the world. And we photographed it. You went through the houses, you went through Demon's Alley, you went through the gates of hell, and you came back with a story, and that's what it was all about.
Hmm. As time went along, is it like a movie kind of scene where you guys went to the next level? Was it literally like, oh, I handed this magazine to this guy who happens to own a publishing company and they want to give you thousands and millions for this?
No,
Or did
no,
it
we've
just,
always been we've always been completely independent of anyway. I mean, well, the magazine has been completely independent. We did 90% of the work ourselves, and we still do, just the two of us. I mean, we do have um a woman, Joanne Austin, who's been with us for a very long time, and when we finally get all these stories together written, she will edit and take out all of the atrocious grammatical errors that we've made and spelling and things like that.
Yep.
But so we have peripheral folks like that, but it's always been just us, and then not only creating the thing, but we have to handle the printing and the distribution, which is a tremendous amount of actual work,
yeah.
leg work. Then, somewhere along the line, the internet became a thing. So we had to put together a website. And then 10 years down the road, social media became
Right.
a thing. And we had to
Mhm.
put together 8 different social media accounts. But as far as other people getting involved, it was only where we, in the sense of there was a job that we couldn't do ourselves. That one of those being publishing a book.
Mm.
We to publish a book, you need a serious distribution. You need a lot of money. So Barnes and Noble got in touch with we'd been supplying all the Barnes and Noble stores in New Jersey with magazines. So they, we were on their radar, and they got in touch with us and said, "Would you like to do a book?" And we were very specific about, well, it has to be exactly like this. It has to be a big
Yep.
coffee table book and full color, and we have to have complete control over the look of it and everything. So, like a while later,
Yep.
our first book came out here, and it was a tremendous success for them and for us, and we had a great relationship with them. So they were adding something that we couldn't do ourselves. And then a year after that, somebody, a television producer from New Jersey, contacted us and said, "Well, let's put a TV series together. I know some folks at the History Channel." So we're like, well, that's something we can't do for ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we partnered up with him for the History Channel series. So in situations like that, we will partner up with folks. Even like when somebody says, "Would you like to make a beer?"
Oh, nice.
The Jersey company, and they want to partner with us, and they take our input. We'll put out a weird New Jersey beer. Um, but it's always fun to see how many different avenues you can take this in, because you can really go in any direction. It's a concept, so it's a
Yeah.
concept
I
that
I was
doesn't
gonna say
have
to
to
you
be
that was
limited.
probably a winning point for you guys because there's so many things focused on like horror and haunted things, but yeah, I feel like you guys made a very smart decision as far as widening that scope and just keeping it weird and
Yeah.
unique. Because I feel like eventually that probably gets limited, and you're also probably don't have as much access to those kind of places to get in and
Right.
out of.
Well, people, they tend to take away what they want to from it, because we always thought weird. It really ranged. We were just as interested in like strange roadside signage from the 1940s as we were
Mm,
in an allegedly haunted house or something. It was all, as long as it was a. We always said we cast a large net when we say weird.
yep.
So it was, so some people just, all they want to do is find out about abandoned asylums that they can go and explore. Some folks, they love the ghost stories. Other people are into cryptozoology. So, we've got, obviously the Jersey Devil, and
Sure.
all of the big red eye and all of these cryptid creatures around the state. So some people are into that. We're into all of it. There's some people, disgruntled people write to us and say, this isn't scary. And we said, well, it's not
Yeah.
called scary New Jersey,
Yeah.
it's weird New Jersey.
Yeah.
So we try to cover everything that might fall under that category, and that's a you know we only publish twice a year, so we can
Yep.
really take the cream of the crop of the stories. Those stories have been in the files for years, because they never make it like that final week when we're cutting stuff to get
Mm.
down to a reasonable page count.
I was gonna
But
ask
they
you about
never make it. So.
your publishing schedule. Was that a conscious choice? Like we got so much, we want to make these just each one like fantastic, or was that like a choice of we can't get to any that much content? Like what? How did you guys decide on okay twice a year?
Well, it always was. I mean, it started out like that, and I think originally the reasoning for that was that, like I said, we both had day jobs. There was only so much time we could devote to going out and physically investigating these stories, because we were treating it as if we were investigative journalists. Um, so that was one reason. Another reason was that you didn't have, like I said, research was very difficult then. You had to depend largely on people giving you tips, and that would only come in the form of written letters, back when people wrote letters.
Mm,
Uh, so it took a while for to accumulate enough stories, because there are hundreds of stories in every issue. As things progressed, I think we kept it at that level, because you really do want the cream of the crop. You
yeah.
want it I mean, like you see, like now with the internet, stories are basically just clickbait, and there's no substance to them at all. All they need is that headline
Yeah.
to get you to
Hmm.
go on their site and then click on some ad that it has nothing to do with what, you're doing. We don't do any of that. We're huge music fans, both of us. Mark actually was, when his day job was working at a local music paper called the Aquarian or Arts Weekly, EC Rock.
Hmm.
That's all under one company. So we're big music fans, and we always treated like an issue like releasing an album. It was like the Beatles putting out, they put out 2 records in one year, which they did for
They did.
years.
Yeah.
Up until Sergeant Pepper, they were putting out two albums a year, and we thought that's a good working model, because you're not always scrambling. Oh my God, we don't have, we don't have great material. So at least this way we can assure you that every single issue has really been honed down and to really good material. The other thing is the stories, they've gotten much more in depth because we have much more resources now to flesh out a story. Back then, like we did, oh, let's do a story on the Devil's Tree. It might only be 2 paragraphs,
Yeah.
and that's all you needed. Now it's like I want to dig into it. I want to find out where history and reality intersect with this legend that's been around for so many years. And I really want to, spend some time and get into it, and I think so to do that, and like I said, with just a 2-man operation, yeah, twice a year is good pace for us. And then every time it comes out, we have to just distribute it ourselves. And that's, like I said, that's a tremendous amount of leg work and office work. Just maintaining the mail list alone with thousands of people on it. I mean, we had to type that, we had actually data entry and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of people don't understand that a lot of this job is office work. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, we want to do a weird New Jersey documentary," and it's like, "Well, 80% of the time I'm sitting at my computer tapping." I don't think a reality show is I
Yeah.
don't think
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
would be
It's not like the
interested.
weird things visit me at my home.
Yeah.
Right, right. The
As
other
you,
thing is they think, they want to do a reality show. Oh, we'll go out to these haunted places and then we'll see a ghost. And I'm like, don't be so sure that you're going to see a ghost,
hmm.
They don't appear on command necessarily. I mean, have you ever seen one of those Bigfoot chasing shows
we
on
we interviewed
TV?
a
It's
guy
like,
who was on the
how many
show.
times have you seen Bigfoot,
Hmm.
That would be the end of the show.
As you've done like, Weird US, the TV show, and you've expanded to other states, do you ever look back and wonder what your trajectory would have been if you both were from like another state? Like, did you ever think back and think, would we be popular if this was Weird Delaware the entire time?
I don't think it could have worked. There's something about New Jersey. It's not just the amount. I mean, yes, there is a great wealth of material for us to focus on. And well, since the state goes back so many hundreds of years, we can draw on a very almost bottomless well of history and folklore. But in addition to that, it's the people of New Jersey. They have a certain spirit and a pride and a kind of underdog mentality. I think that they really they have a sense of identity as a culture. New Jersey.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't see that Ohio pride. Maybe you do in
Yeah.
the sports teams or something, but I mean, you don't see, Ohio strong like you
Right.
see, in Jersey. And we're not the only people doing it. I mean, we started before most people like True Jersey and people like that, which are also branding. Like the True Jersey is an apparel company, so they brand. But they're doing very well, and there's a reason. It's because people from New Jersey really identify with it, and it's part of their persona.
Now, as you guys got more successful and this thing started to to take off, and then also you have the ability to email and whatnot, and people contacting you. Are you getting just endless amounts of, hey, you got to check this out? And did you have to like vet all these to kind of say, okay, what would we be interested in? Like, are these viable places to go check out, or is there a lot of nonsense you guys deal with too?
Well, some leads are dead ends. There's no doubt about that. And then there are other things where, the story just doesn't, it's just not going to cut it. But there's very few correspondences where we feel like people are trying to pull our leg on something.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
and if somebody
Oh,
does, you
we're
can
joined
usually
by
tell.
Mark. We have the other Mark
Oh,
joining us.
really?
Yes.
I I I see he's there, but I don't see his face.
Oh,
He's I don't see his
see?
face or his audio. But you can continue, Mark, as as
Okay.
Marty.
No, yeah. So I was saying, I don't get the sense that I think when people try to pull your leg about something, I think we can see through it. I think most people could see through it. Usually, it's somebody whose story is too well written. You think
Mm.
this is fiction, you know. We did get a couple of letters fairly recently that when the people first started to get into the AI, the chat GPT.
Oh yeah.
We smelled, oh, this somebody actually used AI to generate a story. But you can tell. I mean, it hasn't gotten to the point yet where it because like there's always certain things that don't make sense. So, the
Hmm.
red flag goes up on those. But generally, people weren't really trying to humbug us too much because first of all, we're not offering them any money to publish their story. So, what do they hope to gain?
Exactly.
It's
Right.
not like they're going to get a windfall just for fooling us.
Yeah.
They might get a ha ha, thank you. But
Got him.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, as you said, you expanded like all that you consider weird and don't really have a genre. I'm kind of curious, like me being a horror fan, I do prefer certain types of
Sure.
horror, whatever. Do you get more entertained by a specific, whether it be like Ghost or the Jersey Devil or something
Right.
like that? Is there something that you specifically, when you hear a story, it's like, oh man, I got to read into this more?
Um, as far as going to places, I always, since I was very young, kid, I always enjoyed exploring abandoned places. When I was, in my town, and I could, before I could drive or go anywhere. My big thrill was, going around to like the abandoned farmhouses and stuff in my town. And then as I got older and we could drive, me and my friends would go to Overbrook Asylum, or which was located by North Caldwell, Verona area, and go up through the really big places like that. And there were a lot of them at that particular point in time, which aren't necessarily there anymore. So that was a big thing. But what really fascinates me is digging into the history of if trying to find the story behind the story on a lot of places. It's not just finding a place that seems weird. It's trying to figure out, well, what really happened here, and what's the history of it. And
Mm.
yeah, that I think that's more the fascination for me.
Mark, welcome to the show. Sorry you had some tech issues, but thanks for figuring out and joining us. That's
Can you
Mike.
hear me?
Yeah, we hear you good. We
Yes,
hear
we
you.
can.
I
And
had to update the Zoom. It was
yeah,
audible.
no
Those are the
worries. Mark
worst.
Mark was holding it down for you.
I know.
He
He
talked.
usually does all the usual,
Yeah,
intros.
he had nothing
Well,
but
you would have had to do it anyway for when they were filming the
Yeah.
TV show later this week, right? So because you got it out of the way.
yeah. I mean, he had nothing but terrible things to say about you, but that's okay. That's okay.
Wouldn't be the first
Uh, he'll catch it on the replay.
Yeah, yeah.
time.
So, Mark, I guess interestingly enough, like to jump in, we were kind of finding out about Mark's background as far as getting involved with you 30 plus years ago. He was mentioning that you worked for the aquarium and different writing. You guys are big music fans, but what was your background like prior? Were you always a guy like kind of into the paranormal and into the obscure and whatnot? What was your background that led you to start Weird New Jersey?
Well, I think what I was really interested in was local history,
Okay.
like
Okay.
local history that, not like where Washington slept, but where like some guy got murdered on a railroad track
Yeah.
or something. So
Yeah.
so I would start like gathering stories like that. So I was always I'm from Bloomfield, and I worked with the historical society for years. So when you find these stories, it's interesting because when we first started, nobody was really, writing about this stuff. Nobody considered it history. They just consider it, just like something on the wayside. It was a zine where, well, we go on these trips where people really shouldn't go, you know?
Yep.
And it was like, oh yeah. And really it was a fun thing. We never really expected to bring it this far. We kind of rolled by the seat of our pants for the last 30 years. Whatever happens, it just keeps on coming.
Mm. Can you think of like one story where you officially is like, all right, we got to start publishing this. We got to get this out to people. Is there like a specific story, or was it just like, you know what, I got so many, no, let's share it with the world?
Well, it was the local legends that were the good thing. I mean, like, going to albino village and seeing albinos come out and like with sharp razor teeth and kill you and everything. Obviously, the legend is so bogus, but it made people want to go there and see if it would happen. Or Heartbeat Road, where you go there and you hear the heartbeat of this man that died along the road and things like that.
The thing that I think probably launched 1,000 issues was the quest for Midgetville. And
Yeah.
yes, I know that it is not PC to say midget anymore, but back then everybody was fascinated with the concept that somewhere in New Jersey was this isolated enclave of people who were all little people and had an entire village of houses built to scale that would be comfortable for them to live in. So we were chasing leads all over the state from Totowa to Jefferson to Rancocos, looking for these tiny little villages. And what we found was kind of surprising. So everybody was out in the middle of the night. It wasn't just us. I mean, everybody, all of our readers were out in the middle of the night trying to find Mitch.
Now, all the stuff you guys have done and visited, is there one that stands out that like legit scared the hell out of you? Like, is there something that like lived up to the hype or was even more frightening when you got to it?
Well, I always say this story, but somebody sent this story, said, well, you got to go out in the middle of the Pine Barrens because there's like these 20 starched white shirts nailed up to the pine trees. They're like 20 feet tall.
Mhm.
We're like, oh, this is so bullshit. I mean, nobody's that's ridiculous. When we went out there, they gave us the directions, and sure enough, they were there. And it was like so odd. You're standing there and you say,
Over a
you know,
swamp.
yeah, I'm saying like
Wow.
this somebody actually wanted us to go out there, then they're gonna kill us, because it was like
Yeah,
in the
you start to
moment.
think, you start looking over your shoulder. It's like, did they bring us here for a
Yeah.
reason?
You see them nailing the shirt as you guys are pulling up the last one.
So that was one kind of creepy thing where you're standing there and you're saying, you feel like you're being watched. That was like and that was like what 25 years ago. So since then, everything's been just escalating.
Mhm.
No, I was talking about abandoned places before, and I think, especially if I'm alone, whether they're haunted or not, you really don't know what you're going to find, and it really puts you on edge. Like, I was just in a house a farmhouse. It must have been abandoned for 20 years a few days ago. And a wind blew through it and slammed a door shut about 10 feet away from me. And it was so
Yeah.
I nearly jumped out of my skin. And I didn't know whether somebody had just shot a shotgun in the house. And then I went upstairs and I started to hear like footsteps in the attic. And I'm sure there was animals, but I don't know what kind of animal. It was
Yeah.
like galloping.
Mm.
I didn't know whether it was going to come flying down the staircase at me. It's really, I mean, you can tell why people dig it so much, and it's just because it is super just puts you on edge so much. It's a real thrill.
Mm. What is the number one city that shows up in these stories? What is one of those you start reading and you just like turn to somebody and say, I bet this is Totowa.
No, actually, it's West Milford, right? West Milford is like we have so much weirdness coming up, and I think because it's so less populated, there's like
Yes.
more weird things going on in the woods that you
Yeah,
probably would never
more
know
space
if you
to be
lived in the
weird.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm.
mentioned West Milford before, and now in the early days of the magazine, we would find ourselves going up there I used to call it the Route 23 shuffle. We would be going up Route 23 constantly because the stories kept coming in. It was everything from, I told you about Demon's Alley before, the evil tree in the woods. There's so many, I mean, I could go on and on, but the one thing that like the epicenter of it all seemed to be Clinton Road, which was
Hmm.
just a 10-mile stretch of road through the woods, but it literally had every conceivable story, every archetypal fear that was in the human psyche. People either experienced there or they projected onto it. So much so that we actually put out an entire issue on nothing but Clinton Road.
Huh.
And it was great. I mean, it had ghosts, it had strange animals, it had the Iceman dumping frozen bodies in bags. I mean, it had true crime, ghosts, animals, demons, people chasing you around in pickup trucks. It had a haunted castle where Satanists worship. It was great, man.
And it even snowed in July, right?
That's right.
Nice.
Unexplained phenomena.
It is interesting. So this is a two-part question for both of you. You know, you've been working together for so long. One, what keeps either one of you motivated to keep doing this? And two, how is like the two of you partnership like balance changed over years now that you have a completely different dynamic with social media and putting things up on video. We were talking about it before, just what a commitment that can become. How is your working relationship and what keeps each of you motivated to keep doing this?
Well, I think we have a lot of fun. We drink a
Right.
lot of beer,
Yep.
and then we say some crazy, hey, let's do this and that.
I think it's it's really what keeps you going is the next story. You never know what's going to happen next. It's like life itself. The only thing that keeps you going is knowing that something different's going to happen tomorrow, and it might be great. And when that happens, you can't wait to share it with your readers. In this day and age of social media, everybody is just flooding the social media with their immediate experience. It's become very experiential, which is fine if you're entertained by that. What we do is we get a great experience like that, and then we take time to really dig into it and make it a multimedia thing. Like we'll write a story about it, take the photos, we'll maybe shoot a video, and then when the issue comes out, we get to share all of that with somebody, and hopefully it's more of a story than they would get if we just found something and immediately put it on social media and said, look what I found, without doing any of this sort of having the artistic process to make it into an actual a story, a full-fledged story.
Right.
And what else keeps us going is we have people that come up to us when we do appearances and events, they'll come up and tell us this like wild story, and it's like then we go after it because we know it's a story that nobody's ever heard before,
Right.
and then we write about it and put it in the magazine, and it's come up more recently than a couple of years ago. All of a sudden, people come up to us to a show and say, "Hey, did you ever hear about the weird rock paintings on Garrett Mountain and everything?" And no, right,
Yeah.
Mark? Mark did
Yeah,
the
well,
same.
that's the thing with, we do quite a few events during the year. And what always amazes me, I mean, for the amount of people that email us stories now, and still some people write letters, but generally emails we get, we and there are quite a few, but when we go out to see people in person, we get this whole other level of stories, and they're great from people that just want to chat. And I always say to them, well, you've been following us for 20 odd years. Why did you never tell us this before? And they say, well, I
Right.
never met you before. And I'm like, well, you don't have to. So, but anyway, so like they tell us these things, like Mark was saying about Garrett Mountain. Somebody said, oh yeah, we went up to Garrett Mountain. There's a cave there, and inside is all this crazy cryptic cave paintings, not graffiti, they said. It's actual paintings inside these caves. And I was like, this is fascinating, and nobody has ever mentioned it to us before. And she said, oh yeah, there's Christ crucified upside down on a cross, and and I'm like,
Hmm.
this is crazy. It
Yeah.
could be real. And you put on your hiking boots and you go, and yeah, it's there, and that's great. It's just like one of the greatest fringe benefits of going out. And like that was that was either at the Trump punk rock flea market, or it might have been at the Barnes and Noble meeting that we did fairly recently. But yeah, that's like the real live wire stuff that it's like you can't wait get back
Hmm.
to the office. And now fortunately I have a phone on me, so I say that again. I record their conversation and their name so that I have a reference point, so that
Yeah.
when I back I don't
Hmm.
forget like half of what they said, because Garrett Mountain's a big place and you can't just go in anywhere and find this cave that nobody else has ever spoken of.
Plus,
And
if
you
you're like
think like
10
after
beers,
like
if you're 10 beers deep, it's very hard to remember,
Exactly. It
details.
gets harder as the day goes on.
if you'd think like after 30 years or so, it would kind of wind down, but it really doesn't because there is, strange things happen all the time. It's like that's why we do the magazine. We kind of record these events because they don't really last that long.
Right.
I'm not talking about just like cryptic cave paintings, right? But just like people that put like bowling balls on their lawn and things like that. That's why one of the reasons we do. We're kind of gathering some weird history, and I
Right.
think all our issues reflect that. It's just like that's why I think we still sell all the issues. I mean, and they sell fairly well, and now they're like 20, 30 years old.
Yeah. I mean,
Crazy.
kudos to you guys. Like, I remember picking up your magazine, going to Vintage Vinyl, back shopping for CDs, and there was Weird New Jersey, and picking it up and, reading it at home. And this was 20 years ago. So with all your success and whatnot, and obviously you guys are still motivated, what's in the pipeline for Weird New Jersey? Is there anything new coming up? What should fans or people that are into the magazine be looking forward to?
Well, we always have a few things in the fire. So, we were hoping, to do some deals on TV. I know Sony wanted to do something with us, so we're kind of sitting on that, but we'll see. We'll
Yep.
see what goes
Hmm.
Yeah, TV's a tricky business. We seem to always be, in an option deal with somebody, which basically just puts you in a holding pattern, which means you can't talk to anybody else
Right.
for a
Hmm.
year. So currently we're under contract with Sony Pictures Television, and they wanted to do a TV show, a fictionalized version of
Oh.
Weird New Jersey, you know, a scripted thing. So we're like, you know, we met with the producers. They, you know, they're all Jersey people, the writers, and we thought, you know, they got along with them. They could see, they understood the vision. They gave us a script, you know, it had like characters based on us, you know, but not us. And we thought it sounded great. So Sony was like, Sony, they shopped it around, Sony picked it up. But then you gotta get okay, even if you have a production company and you know, a script, you need somebody that's gonna, you know, air it, somebody that's gonna star in
Mhm.
it, all of that stuff. And so we don't get involved with that because it could drive you crazy, like wondering what's going on in Hollywood.
Sure. Yeah.
So we just
Yeah.
ignore it. We just ignore it. And then what happens is, you know, 6 months from now, it might just evaporate and go away, and we would never even know. It's like, oh, that contract's no good anymore. And then someone else will come up to you and want to option you. We don't spend any time thinking about it because there's nothing we can do about it. We concentrate on what we're doing. Like I said, once in a while, somebody wants to partner up and make a beer. Let's talk about it.
Yep.
So right now, there's a company
Absolutely.
that wants to brand some cannabis, and you know, it's like, well, let's taste it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, smoke it out of the bowling balls on that person's lawn.
But we don't pursue the stuff, you know. But when it comes to us, we'll definitely consider it, you know, and see what you know, see what
I mean,
happens.
even with like, you know, we've been approached, you know, like we did some board games, stuff like that, which, you know, they were fun. To us, they were like ridiculous, but you know, people seem to like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I with everything that's been sent to you, just out of curiosity, has anybody ever sent in a story where you had to reply, "No, that's kind of normal, guys." That's that. No, listen, there's a pharmacy by me. It never closes.
Well,
24/7, man.
we put those in the lower pile, you know. There's a lot of stuff in the lower, you
Yeah,
know.
that's like there are levels of our files. Like that would go in a minor priority file. And it's like, and that's like you save that for when you're ready to go out of business and just print it.
Yeah.
But then there's
Swoop.
the other end of the spectrum where we get letters from people that are so crazy that we actually have a tremendous box called Letters We Would Never Publish. And
Oh,
it's only because they're so insane. And I
That's a-
mean, we get people writing to us from jail. And you know,
it's a great,
they tell us some things that I don't think the general public is ready to hear.
That's a great issue. The
Yeah,
magazine,
yeah.
though, all the unpublished letters would be
Well,
great.
yeah, we have considered it, but that's when you know we're ready to pack up our tent. Where the final issue is going to be stories we would never publish.
Mark, remember that one guy? Who was that guy? Who was that guy who was stalking Kathy Lee Gifford, right?
Yeah, yeah. There was act. This is, I mean, this is a true story. The person wrote us from prison who had been sent away for stalking Kathy Lee Gifford, and I guess you know who she is, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And man, he told some stories, and he could prove all of these things if he could just get to his eloptic time resonator, you see,
Ah.
to get him out of jail and bring him
Oh.
back in time where he could set the story straight.
He wanted us. He wanted us to get it for him.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Nice.
wow.
I-
There you
I'm-
go. There's the TV
So-
show you're talking
so
about.
We're
My
still,
God.
we're still on the search for the eloptic time resonator.
Well, I'm glad you guys got Mike's letter to you. So, guys, I love talking to you guys. I would love to have you back on when you got new stuff coming up. For people who maybe just be hearing this or might not be from New Jersey, know nothing of it, where's the best place for them to go kind of get a taste of all the things you guys do?
WeirdNJ.com.
Yeah.
That's a hub that can take you anywhere. I mean, that'll take you to all of our social media stuff, all of our available issues, thousands of stories on there. It's just the tip of the iceberg, of course, as far as stories go, because, you know, we we have so many, we have 30 years worth of stories. We're not putting them all on the internet, you know, so
And
it'd be
that's
too
the-
hard to navigate through.
And that's the good thing about print, because the stories we put in the magazine, we do not put online.
Right.
So you have to, go old school and buy a magazine. A lot of people say, why don't you put everything digital, digital book? We did. People don't want to buy it. They want to hold the thing in their
Yep.
hand for some reason. So
Yeah.
it's a coveted product.
There's a reason vinyl's just as big as it ever was, and you're
Right.
still
Yeah.
holding the art. There's something
Yeah.
tangible about it. So I understand that. Yeah.
Maybe we'll put a flexi disc in the next issue.
I like it. Guys, thank you so much. Good luck with the future of the magazine, and it's a really pleasure to have the two of you on.
Scott, Mike, thanks for having us. Real pleasure talking with you.
We'll see you around town, okay?